just turning myself to life here. Just coming to life today. Good morning, friends. Good morning, family. I'm here with a good old friend, Jesse Boudreau. Jesse and I have gone back a few years now, 4 or 5 years now. I think we connected, and we've been linking up like this a couple times a year, anyways. I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. We've become friends. Even if we only talk once in a while, we're friends. I'm glad I'm connecting with him today. I'm glad to just be sharing with him today. I'm glad to share him with my friends and my family today so you guys can get to know him and what he's doing and what he's all about. We are talking about health. We're talking about what's wrong with health in our world. Like, let's see, look at the health trouble that we're in, right?
Mhm.
It's all over. We want to understand. I want to talk about why it's going on. Why have we lost track of health? Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you are, how old you are, your family, your story a little bit, and what's important to you, brother. Can you just share a little bit about that? Let's talk about health, bro.
Oh man, that's so many good things. You could have me chatting for an hour. Very talkative. So yeah, greetings one and all. Much love. My name's Jesse Boudreau. I'm a permaculturalist, herbalist, pranic practitioner, and drummer, father, in northern New Mexico. And let's see, I've been studying sort of natural living basically my whole life, but really uh, strongly in the last, you know, 20 to 10 years, particularly with regard to health, the last, like 11, 12 years. Um, and, you know, uh, I have three sons, 17, 19, and 21. And before we got in here, we were going into this thing that's going on with my middle son. I'll get into that in a moment, but just to kind of wrap up, who I am and what I do. I basically love nature, love people, love health. I had my own trials, in health, mental health, and physical health that caused me to come around to many tools of wellness, the whole pranic lifestyle. I've been a breatharian for the last 4 years, where I worked myself over the previous 6 years through fasting, raw foods, meditation, sun gazing, grounding, etc., into a state where I took a longer dry fast and moved towards liquids. So now I'm a liquidarian and have been doing that for 4 years. I would say like 95%. I'll have like some seaweed or some chips or something like that with my kids, my family in connection time, and maybe a little taste of something vegan that I've made for the kids. But my family are all eaters. So we don't have any dietary dogma in our household. We found that that's not helpful to mental and spiritual wellness. That kind of what John and I were talking about to begin with is this whole thing of our need to honor ourselves, our kids, and everyone in their world, uh, in the fact that your higher self is just as smart as my higher self. We're all divinely guided. We're all innately intelligent, and we kind of need to instill more confidence in ourselves and one another. And I think that's partly also, with respect to the health crisis you're mentioning, that has been ongoing actually for decades, since we made some changes to our lifestyle as human beings. So it's it's my path of pleasure. It's my path of service, to meditate on these things and work on these things. I love working in the garden, growing and gathering herbs and natural foods, and teaching and sharing about that, and all the health tools of chronic lifestyle, sun gazing, fasting, meditation, sexual temperance. All these things have just been a lot of the tools I've used to regain my mental, spiritual, and physical wellness. And before we got on, John and I were talking about our kids and things going on with their kids, you know. And this day, one of the things that we were mentioning is the way um, all of us are all just doing our best, you know. Um, I was talking about my son's healing, and he just had a Psych K therapy. I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but it goes into spiritual, psychological, and physical wellness. And it came up that my son didn't feel, uh, supported growing up. He didn't say that, but that came through in the reading, and he definitely was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I've always had that sense, but I don't know why." And I was like, "Well, we've always loved you. We've always, economically supported you. We're always trying to, to our best of our ability, feed you the right words and programs and things. But we have our damage from our parents. You know, I know that my mother was a single working mom. My dad split off from our family, partly to separate himself emotionally from his kids because he had damage with his dad, you know. And I've been trying to heal this in myself through my family by making sure that I'm showing up for them, that I'm doing everything I can to help them to a point of like over, you know, where at a certain point, especially like John and I were talking about with our young kids who are young adults, that's a time where you really need to instill confidence in them and let them fumble and fall and trust their higher guidance, guiding them forward. And you want something for them and you want to protect them from things, but you just can't, you know. And in this whole process, no one is to blame. This is just part of the happening of us, our unfolding is we're all, we're a collective, we're actually a collective consciousness, and everything we go through within our families, it just kind of trickles down in fractal from grandfather to father, the child, So, kind of tell you more about just briefly about what's going on with my son. He has a neurological disorder, autism spectrum disorder, where he has like tics, motor tics, where he'll like twitch and stuff. Um, our water, our well water has uranium in it, and he got a toxic dose of uranium. His body was susceptible to taking up those heavy metals. He had, relationship problems. He got into some, as many teens do, drugs and stuff. And this just made a perfect storm for my son. And so for the last 6 or 7 months, my wife and I have been up with him in the night. He's screaming, he's smashing things, his body's basically in fight or flight. And this has been, getting better through all the things that have been in my pranic practice. Um, you know, his walk every day, exercise. He's, been attentive to his diet and not taking in sugar and caffeine and all kinds of stuff. He's, doing like a nutraceutical, like, program to help heal this of, like fulvic acid and zeolite and, herbs, and melatonin and different things, to help balance his system. And so I can see this progress happening, but because this was going on built through, all kinds of things over so long, it crescendoed at this massive healing crisis. And it's been a real test of, you know, uh, my heart and my, to see my child suffer like this, but continually show up, um, even when he's like being awful towards us because he's feeling so bad, you know, um, learning to just be in the stillness in the center of the storm that's going on. And, I feel like I have concern or, care for the next generation, for the children, you know, because I feel like they're our greatest investment, not just as like a cliche or anything, but nurturing those youth into strong trees is what's going to create a stable society, a strong society, mentally, physically, spiritually. And I love what Dalai Lama says. He says, what if we taught our children to meditate and identify their emotions from a young age and non-violently communicate them? Then we would have adults who could do that. We could be more diplomatic, with respect to, the crisis with the pandemic, I'll say. um, you know, um, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Just that we trust authority over our own selves, you know, and we got to make a change in ourselves on behalf of our children, because what we model, they'll reproduce. You can say things, you can try to teach your children through words and things, but really what shows up is your energy and your actions, and your results. And so, the whole world has been, I feel like it started, in the Industrial Revolution, essentially, where we felt like we could be callous enough to put poison into the environment. It starts when you can hurt the smallest being. If you can, angrily kill a little spider, or hit a dog, then you can do it to a human. If you can be rough with anything, that gives you that something happens in the human mind where then you feel like you can do it wherever. And we got to train ourselves into a culture. Something I've been passionate about is the Taoist method of life cultivation and Wu Wei, where we're actively trying to, it's also in the Buddha. I'm a Buddhist, and the whole Buddhist idea of right speech, action, and livelihood, of actively doing everything you can to create wholeness and balance, happiness, joy, and health in the world. And we've come to trust the priests and the politicians and the scientists and the doctors and everyone but ourselves in terms of how we feel and what we need, and that seems scary to most people, but your intuition is your greatest guide. How many times have you said, I wish I would have listened to myself? So that's all I'm, here to convey, is really to instill confidence in everyone, to know that you can do this. We can make it through this collective trial. And we got to have confidence in ourselves, and we got to model that for the kids, where our problems are going to be exponentially worse in them. So that's the basis of like kind of where I'm at up to this point. My mind's obviously really kind of concentrated on my son and the healing of my son. My permaculture and my pranic practice give me joy. And if I was telling John also, I feel like the many years of practice prior to this, of meditating and livelihood and diet and, all these things, made it so I can show up for my son in this time. That's like the real spiritual work. You do all this practice so that when you're confronted with the real things of life, you can move into it in strength and confidence, and joy and peace. Every human being needs confidence, joy, and peace. So that's primary even to what you eat. And this, as being a pranic practitioner in the breatharian community, all that stuff, there's so much focus on whether you eat or not, or what you eat. But really, how are you showing up in your relationships? How are you showing up in your own heart? Are you joyful? These things matter more. And that's really the main thing I want to, try to convey and say today in terms of my experience and where I'm at. So,
I think your story there, sums it up. Like you're. It sounds to me like you're talking about, authentic love. Giving authentic love to your child, even though maybe you didn't learn authentic love your own self in your life. And I want to say, who's not guilty of this? I mean, who did we learn unconditional love from in our life? Where was the unconditional loving model for any one of us in our life? And at the same time, I'm not blaming anyone for not giving me unconditional love in my life, because I haven't found unconditional love from a human being really in my life. So, none of us have learned this properly. And this is it. When you don't have unconditional love for yourself, then eventually you will get sick. And when the messaging that you're getting from the world is not unconditional love, and you're getting authoritarian control type of messaging, when you're getting fearful type of messaging, when you're receiving and seeing, I don't fit in, I'm not right, I'm not good enough type of messaging, which is coming through marketing, which is coming through education, which is coming from the magazine, from the
Social
image,
media.
one another, from us as broken parents ourselves in our brokenness. We're showing up with this. We're bringing this forward, and so we're teaching this to our children, and I'm seeing it myself in my own family. I was sharing with you, not exactly the same thing, but in its own way, it's like just seeing our young adult children stepping into problems of their own. And it's like, how as a parent do you unconditionally love your child when your child is going through pain, when your child is going through emotional distress, health problems, worry, fear, struggle?
Bad
How do
choices.
you?
Bad choices. I don't want to blame my son. I,
No.
I have my share of responsibility, but he made some bad choices. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's really the crux of it, is us taking responsibility on all levels. Doing everything we can, and I love this phrase: all you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is enough. You know, but bring as much effort as you can, to the situation. And yeah, it's something, watching the world, watching your family suffer, you know, um, loving the world through it can actually increase your sense of love through it. The compassion, seeing other people. I was telling you also about, my son will get up and he'll watch car stuff right away in the morning. I like to get up and meditate and sun gaze and stuff, or he'll come busting into our door loud and having trouble, and you know um get him into the sauna and he cools down and everything. But through this process, so I get up in the morning, I'm trying to have this different vibe, and I hear screaming wheels and hip hop and everything like that, and I'm just like kind of steaming. I've been able through the process to just more connect with, like, this is what he loves, and actually learn more about, even though, I'm a hippie permaculturist. I think we should all be barefoot out in the woods. You know, uh, I'm starting to see that he loves it. This is part of what he wants to do with his life. Like, I should just give confidence to him and learn about it. You know, and support him through you know just understanding more about it. And it's really, like we were also talking about, when I was starting to step into this life, I was of chronic living and everything. I was overcoming my own shadow and problems that I was experiencing with my mind and my health, my spirit. And I started meditating again. I got on the raw food diet. I was sun gazing and grounding, and I had this massive expansion into the greatest feeling of wholeness I've ever had in my life, with my young sons playing here, and this beautiful, you can kind of see my property here. We have a permaculture food forest property. They're running around in the ditch and in the sun and smiling and having fun, and I'm finally growing into my wholeness. And feeling my purpose. And I started to have this vision, of like, because I have this vision that I'm holding for the world. I'm holding it because it's my own heart healing, but that we would move into a more natural way of living and being, and really take our potential seriously, and to really move into the power that we can have through resilience on nature and our own innate abilities. You know, we have all of us have inexhaustible resource, inexhaustible intelligence, but we've been trained to distrust it. So I had this vision of like, my family and I, we would all be, raw food vegans, and we'd all be, sun gazing and feeling whole and strong and working in the garden. But I didn't, as a father, realize, oh yeah, my kids came in with their own soul program of what they're supposed to do here. I can't define it for them, you know. But my whole family, like I said, they're all eaters at this point. It's been this whole thing that was very hard for me to let go of, because it's still hard. Like when I'm in the kitchen, I only cook the vegetable stuff in the house because it's too hard for me. I in terms of my healing, it's so important for me, this nonviolence, the ahimsa. I'm a Buddhist. To do nonviolence, to not kill, to eat. You know, um, is super core to me. But also another thing is valuing my children's well-being in terms of ahimsa. You know, and when the parents are fighting about food at the dinner table, it's one of the worst things. One of the worst things. So we overcame that collectively as a family. It was hard. It was still, it still shows up, like I say, but I've come to a greater understanding that I have to trust their guidance to guide them. And it's the same thing with the vaccine. People are like very judgmental if you're not going to get it, or some people who don't get it are very judgmental of the people who are getting it, you know. And really, we have to accept that we all have the dignity of choice, and whatever's going on between, the virus and the vaccine, this stuff is on the planet now. We're all collective. There's only one of us here. It's going to be moving through all of us. We can't put up barriers. We're going to have to come into more loving acceptance of what's going on in the moment to transform it. That's been my experience with this myself and with my son, and there's a great Buddhist teacher, Pema Chodron, who talks about this, of, just sitting. The thing about meditation is so great for this, just sitting with the discomfort and allowing yourself to get comfortable with it, and sort of making light of it, you know, because otherwise it's this huge thing looming in our mind, a giant monster, and we have to transform it through a more playful, um, less dense sort of place, more of a joyful place. What you mentioned what's wrong with the world. There seems to be a whole lot with respect to our society. I think about Nikolai Tesla, who was able to create free energy 100 years ago that could be available to us all. There's all these things. Something has gone on in the collective human experience that damage, like I was saying, my dad and his damage with his dad, the way that translates, something happened, seemed to have happened, whether it was the burning of the Library of Alexandria, or there was some collective trauma, the wars, the separation, slavery, the subjugation of native people, you know, there's been a long-standing collective consciousness thing going on, and it's up to us to transmute it in this time, I believe. I think that's what we all showed up here to do, and there's a part of us, each one of us, who knows we have infinite capacity and is completely fearless, and so that's what I want to touch in with in my own heart and family, and try to model and bring in change in the world, of this sense of confidence, joy, and peace, and that, to me, that comes through these natural methods. I don't think there's another way.
Yeah, so you're talking about some awesome things there. You're talking about acceptance. You're talking about seeing acceptance full circle in your own family, like really giving authentic love and acceptance to your child, regardless. And I'm seeing it as well, like the struggle of loving when someone that you love isn't conducting themselves in your opinion a healthy way. And this is the thing, like when you love your child and they're dealing with their health with a chemical or a drug or something like this, and you don't agree with it, it's very hard as a parent to love that, like authentically love that, like just accept it the way that it is and not fight against it. And this is it. So the fight is the trouble. Once we're polarized to one side, like my side is right, that makes the other side wrong. And as soon as we're in this right and wrong situation, we're in a fight with our life. Well, this is the trouble with life, is that we are in a fight with our life. We are in a fight or flight with our life, and we've not been found a way to find some sort of peace or ease or love for ourselves and our life. And that includes, ourselves personally and our extensions, our children, our careers, our finances. Like we have to find some sort of acceptance for everything exactly as it is. And, you're talking about some important things, like the Buddha talked about suffering. The Buddha talks about acceptance. These are all parts of the wheel of samsara. These are suffering. This is about living with suffering in your life, like how to find peace with suffering. Life is filled with suffering. Disease is a part of life. Aging is a part of life. Having food, not having food, having your health, not having your health, having wealth, not having wealth, like finding some sort of peace with not having the things that your friends do. So jealousy, envy, these are shadow emotions. This is low vibe energy. We have to find some way to find some sort of peace with these things, because we've learned these things. We've been taught these things. We've been taught a program that is a fight program. It's not an integrative program. We haven't learned a program that allows us to see good and bad. Like we see it as polar opposites. We haven't been given the tools to see that it's not right or wrong. We've been taught that, and we've been taught an incorrect worldview. And that's the trouble. With our broken worldview, we will find disease. And it's to watch your children with their broken worldview that you can't correct. That just takes lifetime to correct. Like took me 45 years to start to correct in my life. That now at 50, I'm getting my feet on the ground, that I can learn how to properly love my child. It's no wonder that the child is demonstrating any sorts of health problem themselves. And how could they have anything else if dad didn't get himself on the ground until 50? Well, then what do you expect is going to happen? It's going to have some sort of ripple effect in the life. We're seeing disease all around us. We're seeing disease all within our own self, extensions of our own self. We're healing disease in our own self. And I like what you said about we have the power, but it takes a bit of time and practice with these things: fasting, meditation, positive affirmation, gazing into the sun, putting your feet on the ground, eating raw foods, drinking juices, moving towards a lighter lifestyle, a lighter food. We come to these realizations of how to be healthy. We learn these things later on in life because no one teaches us this. We were taught a broken paradigm for health. So we lost our health and we're watching our families lose their health around us. And now we've gained our health back, and now we're looking at our brokenness in our families and saying, oh my gosh, how to love this brokenness in our families, how to love the brokenness in the world, and to see like the world needs love to come back.
Mhm.
That
That's
every
what's to be
one
the
of us
healing.
needs to learn how to love ourselves to come back.
Yes, yes.
Personally, at the individual personal level, each human being needs to learn how to do that. And what we eat matters, and whether or not we're killing matters, and whether or not we're a part of that matters. And live food does matter. And there is a different approach to health, but you kind of have to go a bit broken before you find out that you can heal yourself. Like every single one of us can heal ourselves. We don't have to get sick here.
I think that that's what feels hard. I feel like, I listen to, and I have native friends, and I listen to, there's a guy on YouTube I listen to a lot who's, sharing a lot of, native wisdom. And you look at different cultures across the world throughout time. Yeah, this was always kind of going on. But this is really punctuated in the last couple centuries. This has really become more of an insidious and systematic collective problem. you know I think what feels hard is that we should, as adults, be able to guide our children into this lifestyle, or into, maybe not the chronic lifestyle. I don't think that, I honestly don't believe that's for everyone. I think it's a matter of, sort of a certain state of maturation,
A calling, some sort of
a
inner calling.
calling.
Yeah,
There's a
I really think there's some sort of inner calling to that. Yeah.
totally, totally. I was called. I just, it's like thrilling to me. It sounded amazing, and it has been. It's been incredible. But if you look at, like, indigenous culture, for instance, um, they would be teaching all of this sort of connective relationship, wholeness, confidence, from the youngest age, a naturalness. You couldn't avoid, as a native person, an indigenous person, anything other than naturalness, you know, because it was just a way of life, and I really think that's a key part too, is that we get forward, into healing the planet and realizing we're part of the Gaian consciousness. Actually, our thoughts are Earth's thoughts. They're her thoughts. You know, the Earth and the sun. They're electric, and we're just a transmitter receiver for the consciousness of Jah. So, um, I think it's what I see from Native culture. Like, I have some friends who are, you know, uh, kind of younger Native people, in their 20s right now, and they have all the same problems that any white person has in terms of, or any other person on the planet, or particularly Western culture, with respect to, like, this sort of disconnective diaspora, unnatural diet, bad program from school and TV and everything, and alcoholism and all this stuff. But my brother Sunbird, like, he really uh really gravitates to the native ways, and he grew up in the kiva, learning special prayers, learning songs and dances, doing they do a rain dance every year. He told me every year it rains every single time, and one of the main things that people chant at the end is, it's already done. you know um and this is kind of the thing. It is already done. We already have walked through all this. It's already, we can heal this situation. But I think this is going to be part of the path, is like nurturing the children up from the very youngest age, because in a more holistic way of thinking, you know like the Dalai Lama's thing of, if we can teach this nonviolent communication and understanding, then we can grow up to a culture that does that. Because really, especially on the subconscious mental end, we receive almost everything by the time we're like 4 or 5. Our whole subconscious program that we run out the rest of our adult lives comes in at that earliest time. you know. So I grew up with my parents splitting, and like single working mom, watching a lot of TV dinner, you know. It's a program, it's a lifestyle. And she was actually in our house the first. She brought in vegetarianism when I was in high school, and we all rebelled, at first, but I actually really appreciated it. And I feel that's partly what led me to the allowing myself to live this lifestyle. And there are things I've seen that, it really comes through counting our blessings too, more than our problems. You know, I do see ways in which my dad and my mom showed up for me, modeled things that have helped me actualize things in my life and help my fulfillment, you know. And I believe there's agreement that we come in before this life, choosing our parents, knowing we're going to be going through these things together, you know. And it's part of my evolution, it's part of your evolution. Let's get together, you know. Part of a friendship, any relationship is really trying to, you know, resolve karmas, you know. Um, that wheel of samsara just keeps going until you you remove yourself from it, through action. So, it's that whole thing of, sorry, here's my breatharian brother who lives out. He's living at the bottom of my property in a tent, even in snow, and he's practicing with me. He got into it some years ago. His name's Callan, or the Wizard. Another good
Wow.
another
So you
good
got
man.
you got a tenant on your property.
Yeah, I mean, such as it is, he's really about the whole free man movement. And you know I believe we're going to have to get into some more of that to get free from all of the strictures, all of the stuff, everything legal is basically set up from uh the Catholic Church, or Christianity, in, I think it was the Pope in the 14th century, laid claim to the earth and everything and everyone on it. And the whole thing of having like a birth certificate, that all comes from like maritime law, where a birth certificate was for when a product came from a certain country. It got a certificate so that as you're moving stuff around, where it came from, etc. So your birth certificate is the same thing. you know all of this legal stuff is kind of like talisman that hold our consciousness confined. you know so we're going to have to break free into natural law and wu wei, allowing, like, I'm a big fan of Taoism too. And in Taoism they say there's just the way of the universe, and this, like you were saying, this polarity, this bifurcation, when they split us and get us fighting, whether it's the vax or not, or whatever, anything, then they've succeeded in polarizing us and having us fighting ourselves and each other. you know so wu wei is this whole thing, this idea of non-doing or non-action. And that doesn't mean that um you don't. A better way of saying it is non-forcing. you know um Allowing. Just allow. This process will work itself out. And all of the contrivance, sometimes we go to try to fix a thing and we make it worse, right? you know Unless you know what you're doing. So
And this is acceptance. This is, these are just different words: acceptance, surrender, forgiveness, wu wei, allowance. Like it's just different ways to say the same thing, right? It's the same thing. It's some way to find a peace in the disease, right? So, your child, you love your child. I love my children. You understand parent love when you have a child, like you love your lover. But there's also something different when you love your child. You feel that they're a piece of you. You can feel sometimes that your partner may not be of you, but your child, you feel, this is of me. And this, so for this child to not see love from me, or feel love from me, or perceive love from me, or to feel in any way that I don't love them, it's just destructive to the soul of a parent, right?
and the
You
child.
love, you just love this extension of yourself. And we have to bring an unconditional love to them. And sometimes as a parent, we feel like we want to teach, we want to guide, but there's something different. And this is a big one for me as a coach. I'm a coach downstairs in my studio, but as soon as I go up the stairs, I made a mistake with this. I'm sorry for it. I see the mistake I made. I was a coach downstairs. I went upstairs. I took the coach to my family. I coached them. Like, it's different when you are coaching someone than when you were like authentically loving someone. And I didn't learn this until later in life. So I didn't learn how to love myself and heal myself until 50. Well, this is too late. You've already created some things in your life. You set some things in motion in your life, and you can't do anything about it. You can't undo it, but love can heal it. You can heal it in yourself with love.
It's never too late, in other words. Yeah.
No, but we have to deal with a little bit of discomfort, right?
Yeah, there's things where it's like it's too far, it's too far gone and it's too late for that, but it's never too late to make a transformation, to do something, even just the wish to can bring it around, that whole thing of asking you shall receive. It's that thing of asking the wish. I was just hearing a great thing about this morning. I was in Gospel of Thomas, and I think what they said was, when your thought and the feeling line up, you can move mountains, right? Not just thinking about, because people are, a lot of people are in our community are interested in manifestation, right? And I really believe imaginal acts become facts. If you can hold it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand, but it's important to attach that feeling of it's already done, of what it would be like. And so I meditate, we can meditate collectively right now on this for the world. What if we lived in a natural world with free energy? All this stuff that you and I have been exploring with pranic, I haven't been sick in 10 years, just from taking care of my health right, sleep, it's simple stuff, sleeping, well, hydrating well, right food, sunshine, it's not super complicated. It's just a practice, and so we got to change our practice. But we could live we could be rid of social stratification, if we had free energy and we were creating free food. What I've learned from permaculture, we can grow 8 acres of food on 1 acre. That's the challenge that permaculture designers have and can do through stacking and layering like a forest. And there's something I studied in the permaculture school I went to. There's a well-vetted research document that basically shows that indigenous people created the Amazon rainforest. They're also forests in Northern Europe, vast forests that human beings made. There's people in India right now that are planting billions of trees. That's how we're going to sequester carbon. It's not going to come through a fancy technological future scientific thing. It's trees, and non-tilling. So we could create all the food we need with the 0 point energy. If that stuff that Nikola Tesla figured out made its way to public, if this stuff we're talking about with chronic living, like, we don't have to be sick. We can live long, healthy lives. Imagine what the future like. And then if we took this other step, this most vital step of caring for each other from a truly loving place, realizing that there's only one of us here, that anything that bothers you about someone else is just a reflection in your own self that you don't like, to come more to that bonding and loving your own self, so that every reflection you see is that extension. We could live in a world of, Buddha says, if we can make one person in this world happy, and that was ourselves, we could have world peace. So that's what I envision, daily, is a vibrant world full of life, natural life, healthy humans with a healthy consciousness moving forward in strength and confidence to a healthy future, and we're going to have to overcome all this uh you know doubt that we've created for ourselves. And it's easier said than done. Like, we all know this at a certain level, you know but that's what I feel the times are about. Is this is where the rubber meets the road. So I feel inspired by it. There's one of my mentors says you can use your brilliant mind to look at everything uh, wrong in the world, or you can use your brilliant mind to look at everything right in the world. And each one will bring you more of the same. So let's concentrate in ourselves and our families on the highest vibe possible. you know Realizing and respect that everyone has the dignity of choice, everyone is guided in the right way, and you just have to love and trust, and it'll all work out. And yeah, it seems easy, but it's not, right? And that's just because of our program. It's actually more natural to us to think and feel in that way, than it is to be confined in thought to fear and anxiety. So
So,
hope that
we've learned through our lifestyle, through education system, through even parenting system, our own homes. We learned from a lack of love, everyone in a state of lack of love, everyone looking for love from things, from food and from career and from money. And this is what we've been taught. Like, this is what we've been taught what love is. And we've got a broken worldview and we've taught that. And the whole world has learned this authoritarian love, like control, listening to other people, listening to what the doctor says, not trusting in themselves, not trusting in their own inner wisdom, their own intuition, not finding or cultivating the ability to develop their own inner power and recognize that with their own inner power they can heal themselves if they would develop that strength in themselves with proper thought and word and focus and attention. And all of these things can be learned through meditation. That's focus and breath work and thought and intention. Like, these are simple skills that can teach a person how to change their life. It's, hidden in the breatharian lifestyle. We talked about that being a calling, but it's an inner calling. It's a calling, and it's being able to listen to your insides. That's what it's about. The breatharian life teaches you how to listen within,
it's a
how to
freedom.
find the power within, how to heal, change, fix, manifest your life from the power you have within yourself. Protect yourself with immunity from within yourself. This is what we've learned from our lifestyle. We've learned the breatharian lifestyle, but we've understood that you can't really teach the breatharian lifestyle to the North American. Like, they don't even understand what that is. So we just talk about aspects of it, like fasting. We talk about sun gazing. We talk about being in nature. We talk about parts about the lifestyle. We may or may not describe it as breatharian. I call it health and wellness lifestyle. It's
Yeah,
a
that's all it
it's
is.
a true, authentic health and wellness lifestyle, is what it is. But we've been taught a false one. And, with the false one, we make ourselves sick. And we're all making ourselves sick right now. And we can all learn how to make ourselves well. Unfortunately, it seems we have to get sick first and get sick for a while before we recognize how to be well. Like, it was the fact that I got broken in my life that I found wellness. That's
Yeah,
and
but
how to accept your child, as you can see, or you can see people you love around you, they're breaking themselves, and you can see it and you go, Jesus, like, you don't need to do this. I've learned that you don't need to do this, but now you have to watch your child do it.
yeah, that's the hardest thing. That's so hard. I think every parent, can speak to that. Of it's really better if you let the child stumble and fall and be empowered to deal with it themselves. you want to go and help them pick themselves up, you know, giving them love and support. That's, I really like the Tibetan way. It's like whatever they do, you just bring them love, you know. It just comes down to that. They're gonna mess up, they're gonna call you names, they're gonna, do all kinds of stuff. And they think of you as a god, basically, you know. So if you can bring godliness to it in the form of love, like real love, just, you know, it can be hard. It can be hard. And it's interesting that it would be, you know. It seems to me more natural that it would be easy, you know, that loving is a more on our bodies and our minds, it's much more beneficial, you know. uh Anxiety, anger, frustration, those things, actually stress, those things tear us apart physically, and emotionally. So it's it's strange and interesting at the same time. I really feel the breatharian lifestyle is just a freedom lifestyle. It's just for someone who wants total and complete freedom of health, you know. And whether that amounts to not eating, there are people across the world who have over time achieved that, and a lot of them did it without all of the things that you and I do, of like fasting for years and everything. Like a lot of them got, like a vision, or a communication from spirit, and then they just didn't eat food, you know. And I really believe it's actually, in terms of the function, I think we're actually electrical gas machines. You know, we can use food, prana, food chi, because we're actually able to exist on many sources of energy, you know. And really, it's this stillness in the heart, the happiness in the heart, and a loving vibration that, the way I understand it, the heart is a 0 point energy device, actually. If you check out Nassim Haramein in his physics, he's actually come up with a grand unified field theory that's under peer review. That's something Einstein was trying to crack but couldn't. And part of his whole thing is everything is a singularity, whether it's a sun or a human or a cell, or a plant. And that's like an emanation point. And for the human being, it's right in the heart center. You know, you have a toroidal field that emits from your heart that's more than 50 feet, that you can measure more than 50 feet away from you. Probably goes on into infinity. You know, certain adepts can really, like, they did these tests at Stanford Heart Math Institute where they put a little room of copper walls, and they put, average Joes and like Taoist adepts and everybody in there. And the adepts were able to create more electrical charge. Their body is charging with more electricity. So it's really about also a new understanding of, like, I think the new health science is going to be, and the new science in general, whether it's Nikolai Tesla or, Victor Schauberger or, the pranic lifestyle, is that the universe is electrical, and that we are electric, it's electricity that moves through all things, and in the ancients, the way of the ancients, there's the radiative force, Ra, and the electric force, El. And it's really the two, the sun is a radiative force, the earth is an electric force, but it's the same thing of energy. So, and whether that's consciousness, or physical energy, it's all energy. And I sort of believe that consciousness is energy. Because that's been my experience, the more I fast and sun gaze and do these things that build my life, the more energy I have and the more clarity of consciousness I have simultaneously, So I think it's the divine right of all of us, and something that's we can all tap into, and as a freedom, a way toward freedom. And so that's what appeals to me about it. And just, I always love trying to do what, when someone says, you can't do this, I'll be like, oh yeah, let me try. Because I do have that confidence in myself. It's not as full as, like we were talking about before. It could be more full. I could definitely have more confidence in myself by a million miles. But everything I put myself to do, I can do. And if you look at, like, there's this great book, The Biology of Belief, or maybe no, that's not the one. It's oh shucks, no, I think it is Biology of Belief by Greg Braden. And he talks about this thing. Every time they set a record, say in sports, someone breaks it, and then they break it again, and then they break it again, and they break it again. There is no limit, you know, to what we can do as human beings. And so we can handle this situation. We can transform this situation. Let's go in with that thought form of let's do this. We can do this. Let's do this. Let's make it
Yeah,
better.
to come with that thought form, like that we've got this, rather than we're afraid of this, or we're losing this battle, or we're afraid we've got to inoculate ourselves. Like that's the wrong approach right there. It's like it's just this idea that this thing has more power than us, and we can arm ourselves against it with some sort of drug or chemical. Like that.
Or
That's
anything. It's
yeah.
our
Like
consciousness.
you can't arm yourself physically against life force energy. Life. Like you can't arm yourself against life. Like nothing is against life.
We're
Like
part of it.
everything is for life. Everything is from life. So it's all coming from singularity, from one energy. So you mentioned that like we're all one thing. This is one entity here. This entity is sick. This entity has the power to be well. All of us have that power. If we look into that power within us, it's there. But we've got to do a little cleansing mentally, emotionally, physically to prepare ourselves to receive that power that is within every single one of us. We can all find it. We need to believe in that. Like, I believe in myself. Like, I believe I have health within me. Like, that is what has to be, not like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I might get cancer. I'm afraid I might have this disease, or I'm afraid I might this might happen, or I'm afraid that might happen to my child. Like, you're afraid of what might happen. This is what's happened is we've learned to be afraid.
Mhm.
Human
And
has
our,
learned to be afraid. And this is why human is sick, because he's learned to be afraid of life, afraid of the life. Like nothing forged against you can prosper over you. You are made of the essence of the creative force. So there is no power against you unless you think it has power over you. So if you give power away to the disease because you believe the disease has power over you, then you are sick already. You broken in mind. Once broken in mind, will be broken in physical. It's just a matter of time. You will get the disease too. We
yeah,
need to change our mind, our perspective, our the way that we're managing ourselves in our life, the way we think about ourselves in our life. We need to practice the right thought about ourselves in our life.
mhm. It's the whole thing of the cart before the horse. You know, the mind leads the body. As they've found out quite clearly in physics now. The mind leads reality, our physical reality. So if we want to change reality, we have to change our minds first and foremost. And it is key to do, the fasting and the raw food and the juicing. There's so
100%.
much chemicals and stuff that we've put in the world. We're as beings at the top of the food chain, we bioaccumulate that more than anyone else in the whole food chain of all the other animals and stuff. And if you want the consciousness, you have to prepare the vessel to receive it. You have to also put forth that good showing that you care about yourself, and that you extend that. That's what I love about veganism and raw food is like, and beyond just caring about myself, caring about other beings. I believe there's a time, for certain people in certain instances where meat can be healing. From my study as herbalist, someone who's extremely deficient, etc. But that is a rare, because when you got to rebuild flesh, it's best to rebuild it with flesh. But to me, that it's like all things, it can be a medicine or a poison, you know. And if you look at it like a native, I've got so many native friends, that eat meat too. And the way they do it, they dance, they, thank the spirits of the animals. They take them in a good way.
With
They
a
use the
respect for
whole
life.
animal.
It's with a respect
There's,
still for the life.
it's a whole different thing, And even those people, like especially in past indigenous communities, the bulk of the diet is plants. We're mostly plant eaters. If you look at the shape of our teeth,
With some
the
meats,
shape,
if you look at the chimpanzee or the great ape, he's eating some insect. It's okay to have a little bit. It's just not to be the foundation of the diet. Like we need to reduce it. Like we're not talking about elimination of anything. We're just talking about a rebalancing of self and life.
and temperance. Meat has sort of like this addictive quality. You know, people crave it. You know, um, everything does. I crave chocolate. I
Everything
got my
does, to
chocolate
bring
superfood.
things back into balance, to have some time with and some time without, to take it away, a fast, to
Yes,
take it away for some time, because you have to find peace and love and acceptance and joy and surrender and allowance of your loving energy without it
in
and
all
with it,
situations. Yeah,
because you
all
have to
situations.
have it both, because sometimes the money's in the bank and sometimes it's not. So if you can't find peace here and here, then you're going to be in disease all of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, and I really feel it's like it is that thing of following your inner guidance. That's what I've learned for myself. I was guided to this because it just kept feeling better and better and better and better and better. My wife didn't quite have that experience, and I understand, she comes from a different place in the world. She has different, genetic background. She has, her own, I study Ayurveda, so she has different dosha qualities. I'm very pitta and fire. She's very vata and kapha, so she gets edema. You know, too much raw foods really caused her problems. She needed more warming foods. You know, so I argue that didn't have to be meat. If you're inclined toward ahimsa, and that's what you need to do for your healing. You know, but because you can ameliorate those things with herbs and different, like you could eat some more beans or something that's more, root vegetables, more grounding, nourishing things that are kind of on par, or mushrooms or things like that, that have B vitamins or, protein. People worry about protein, but protein has been linked with disease. It's the more protein, the green blue zones of the earth where people generally live to be over 100 is very low protein, very high on plants. So it's in it's in the record to some of the oldest living people on the earth are the Hunzu, and they live primarily, if not fully, vegan lifestyle. You know, um, I think it's part of this thing is once you start eating a lot of those foods, it plugs up your lymphatic system, it plugs up your respiratory system, it starts to create disease. It makes a place people misunderstand, like a virus, for instance. A virus are essentially super intelligent organisms, like the bacteria in the soil. Some of them have an order of trillions of genetic coding, where we have something like 10 to 30,000. You know, and so they'll come into a site. It's this whole thing of germ theory versus terrain theory. It's both. It's either, neither, and both. If you don't take care of the terrain and you're all plugged up with, fatty foods and toxic chemicals and everything like that, the virus will come in and clean it up. But that, for us, feels like a viral infection, and it can even kill you. You know, um, but if your terrain is clean, the virus doesn't have anywhere to get in and take hold. So, because it doesn't need to, it's not. It actually goes to the site of inflammation and cleans things up. That's what viruses do. You know. So similarly to like what's in the soil, the bacteria and the things in the soil are the microbiome of the plants. That's how they assimilate. And there can be pathogenic or beneficial bacteria, and then there's all these neutral bacteria. And the same thing happens in our body. The neutral bacteria will gravitate to whichever there's the most of. If you have a bunch of pathogenics in you, the bacteria and the viruses and etc. are going to are going to explode. If you have beneficial bacteria in you, same goes, you know. So there's this whole fractal thing of what helps the earth helps us. And when we reconnect with the earth and our life way, that's been my experience with the pranic thing. I spend all day, in gardens and hiking around in the forest barefoot. I'm absorbing probiotic through my feet, complex probiotic. I'm grounding, I'm getting electrons. I'm, working with these herbs that are like super sentient teachers, that are teaching my biology how to be more adaptive in various ways. I'm out in the sunshine. I'm getting greater oxygenation. I have this whole thing of earth, wind, fire, water. Getting greater oxygenation because you get 100 times or as many as 1,000 times better oxygenation outside than you do inside. Getting light and vitamin D on my skin, and all of it is natural. I'm picking herbs, and like if I pick a shoot, it branches, and makes more. Or I literally garden when I gather things from the forest. So I'll spread seed. I'll do what I can to nurture what's there. And by doing all this activity, I'm just getting greater health. It doesn't come at any extra anything. I'm just having fun in the forest playing with plants, you know. But I'm getting all this ancillary benefit from it because I'm injecting myself into the ecosystem. So
You're getting into the nature. You are returning to nature. You're returning to balance from being in the nature. Like the nature is healing you. Like this is what the nature does. Like everything in nature comes back to balance. Like return to natural, return to nature and watch the body heals of all things. Just get back into alignment with the source energy that's within you. Find it. Take away the food and the coffee and the drugs, the sex for a moment. Stop the shopping and the working and the money and the screens for a second and just sit and be in emptiness and find an alternative source of energy. Yes, there is one, but you've got to take a break from all of the scatter that we've been caught up with and addicted to. In order to find it, you've got to take a time out in order to find it. It takes a second, but it's intrinsically, it's within you. You'll find it. Just settle down and just go in. You will find it. It's in your nature. It's in your DNA. Like just commit, seek, and you will find it. Like unfortunately, we have to get sick before we recognize that we can be well. Yeah. Something has to break, or we realize that we can fix it. Like this is, we've lost belief in ourselves. We've lost self-belief.
Our natural state is wellness and balance. Every cell in creation is trying to seek equilibrium and vitality, and when we're sick, it's because we're just impeding the natural flow of what wants to be, so that whether that's a mental obstruction, like these things we were talking about with the family or the social thing, or whether that's a physical obstruction of something you're doing too much of, so yeah, I hope that was of value to everyone. I definitely feel like,
I hope so. Hopefully we've shared, some information. This is what it is. It's dialogue, it's communication, it's relationship, it's brothers coming together and having a little dialogue, a little communication. This is how the world gets different information, because there is different information that is available, but people have to hear it. You have to sit and talk about it for a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to understand what's gone on, what's gone wrong, what's going wrong, and it takes a little time to talk and think your way out of it, but we can. It's to come with that frame of mind that, yeah, but we can. Humans have to recognize, yeah, we're up against the fence a little bit right now, but it doesn't matter. We are the ones.
We are capable. We're infinite, beings. We're actually God incarnate. We can do this. So let's do it.
Brother, thank you so much for the chat today. We'll hook up again real soon. Jesse Boudreau, we'll make sure we share all links. Make sure you give me anything that you'd like to promote or share or link anything to anything warm on your heart. If there's anything you'd like to
Oh,
promote or share, please, brother.
yeah, I love, I sell superfoods, juices to help people along this path, all kinds of medicinal mushrooms and herbs and stuff like that in there. If you would like to help with our family go through this crisis and contribute to our GoFundMe, I'd really appreciate that. Really, to me, I get medicine and healing benefit from our conversations, and hopefully someone else can too. And if there's something else I can do for you, health consultation or superfoods or something, or permaculture design, or just want to reach out about the breatharian experience, feel free to contact me. I'd love to. That's the thing of, that I see with you and me that has become part of our health path. As a coach, as a teacher, we hold these mantles, and they can cause us problems, but it's also part of our heart mission. And this whole thing of like, if we're going to turn this around, we need to get as many people going. Like, I want to help as many people heal as possible, and if I can. So let me know if I can do that for you. I'd be glad to be of service.
Brother, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your love. I super appreciate you and look forward to when we meet again. Blessings and peace and love and light to you, brother. All the best.
Love you, John. Thank you so much for being my friend. And, we're going to get through this together. We'll keep talking so we can keep each other up.
Thank you, man. See you later.
Peace, everyone. Much
See
love.
you later.